In this video, we'll be taking a look at 5 NHL games happening on December 17, 2025, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 10 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 5 NHL games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Los Angeles Kings versus Florida Panthers. The Los Angeles Kings head to Amerant Bank Arena on Wednesday to face the Florida Panthers in NHL action. The Kings have actually played some of their sharpest hockey away from home this season, with 10 road wins already, and they have taken 7 of the last 10 meetings against the Panthers. That kind of history gives them some quiet confidence, even if nobody is shouting about it. The issue, though, is that Florida finally looks like a group that is settling in, and once that team gets rolling, they tend to keep the momentum going. You can see it in the little things, the cleaner breakouts, the smarter puck support, the kind of details that usually show up just before the wins start piling up again. Lately, the Panthers have tightened up defensively while the offense has come to life, putting up 4 or more goals in 5 of their last 6 games. That is not an accident. When a team defends with structure and still attacks with pace, it feels like they are coming at you in waves, especially in their own building. Florida has been a problem at home for most of these recent deep playoff runs, and the building tends to get loud quickly when they score first. For a visiting team, that can feel like skating uphill all night. On the other side, the Kings have been showing small signs of defensive regression, the kind where missed assignments or late sticks in lanes turn into grade A chances against. Losing Darcy Kuemper for the foreseeable future in this write-up is framed as another hit, because the idea is that it strains a defense that already looked a bit shaky. Now you are heading across the country to face a Panthers squad that is heating up and has played its best hockey at home this year. Honestly, that is not a great setup for Los Angeles. It feels like the margin for error is tiny for the Kings in this spot, and you do not want to be chasing the game in that rink. The price on Florida is not out of control here, which matters if you are thinking in betting terms and not just hockey terms. With the Panthers trending upward, playing at home, and facing a Kings team that looks a touch vulnerable, the lean has to go toward the home side on Wednesday night. As our first pick for this matchup, the Florida Panthers money line is our full game side pick. Now, shifting to the numbers that shape how this game might flow on the scoreboard, the Kings are averaging 2.59 goals per game and are scoring on 14.3% of their power play opportunities. That is not a terrifying offensive profile, but it is not toothless either. When their special teams click even a little, they can hang around in most games. Defensively, the Los Angeles Kings are allowing 2.53 goals per game and are killing 80% of their opponents' power plays. Those figures suggest a team that usually keeps things reasonably tight, although recent form and travel can nudge those numbers around on any given night. On the other bench, the Florida Panthers are averaging 3.19 goals per game and are cashing in on 18.9% of their power play chances. That gap in scoring punch is important when you think about the total. Florida can turn a game into a track meet quickly, especially if their top 6 gets rolling and they draw penalties. Defensively, the Florida Panthers are allowing 3.13 goals per game and are killing 83% of their opponents' power plays. So you have a team that can score in bunches but also gives up its fair share, which often leads to higher event games where the puck is zipping north and south rather than getting stuck in the neutral zone. Put all that together and you are looking at a matchup where one team plays with a strong offensive ceiling and the other brings a structured but occasionally leaky defensive profile, with both power plays capable of doing at least some damage. That kind of recipe usually leans toward more goals rather than fewer, especially with a dangerous home offense involved and the chance of special teams swings. It is not guaranteed chaos, but the ingredients are there for the scoreboard to stay busy. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Utah Mammoth versus Detroit Red Wings. Both teams split their two meetings last season, one win each on the road, so there is already a bit of familiarity and a small edge to the visitors in terms of confidence. The Mammoth grabbed a 4-2 win in Detroit, then the Red Wings answered with a 5-1 win in Utah. That kind of home ice flip is always a little funny because fans expect the opposite, but it does remind you that matchups and scheduling often matter more than banners hanging in the rafters. Fast forward to this season, and Detroit has the better body of work and the hotter current form. The Red Wings have stacked more points, and they are on a heater with a 5-1 record in their last 6 games. That is not just a cute streak, that is a team actually closing games out. Utah is in a very different spot, grinding through the second leg of a road back-to-back and playing their third road game in 4 nights. Anyone who has done cross-country travel with bad sleep and hotel coffee knows that those last few hours hit different, and hockey players are not robots either. That fatigue angle matters, especially for a club that is just 2-4 in its last 6 games. The special teams gap leans toward Detroit as well. The Mammoth power play is weaker than the Red Wings, and in a game that could hinge on 1 or 2 chances with the extra skater, that edge can tilt the ice just enough. Add in the building factor, and it gets even more interesting. Detroit has gone 10-6-1 at home this year, which is a solid home profile, while Utah sits at 8-11-2 on the road. That is not a disaster, but it is not exactly a road bully either. The Red Wings have also won 5 of their last 6 and held opponents to 2 goals or fewer in 3 of their last 5, so their recent defensive focus and goaltending are trending in the right direction. Utah is not falling apart, by the way. They have won 2 of their last 3, which shows there is still some push in that room. The problem is they have allowed 4 goals in 4 of their last 5, and that kind of leakage makes it hard to steal games when you are tired, traveling, and relying on your depth to survive another night on the road. When you stack all of that together, it feels like Detroit's combination of form, home ice comfort, special teams edge, and improved goaltending gives them the clearer path to closing this one out. As our first pick for this matchup, the Detroit Red Wings money line is our full game side pick. Offensively, the Red Wings are averaging 3.09 goals per game and are converting 23.8% of their power play chances. That is a pretty healthy offensive clip, especially with a power play that punishes mistakes. Defensively, they are allowing 3.21 goals per game and killing 80% of opposing power plays, which suggests their overall game still has some volatility, even if the recent stretch looks cleaner. On the other side, the Mammoth are averaging 3.06 goals per game and are scoring on 16.2% of their power play opportunities. So they are not far behind Detroit in raw scoring, but their man advantage unit does not pack quite the same punch. Defensively, Utah is allowing 3 goals per game and killing 83.5% of their opponent's power plays, which paints a picture of a team that usually keeps things reasonably tight, especially when they stay disciplined and let their penalty kill do its job. If you plug those averages into your mental scoreboard, you end up in that around 6 goals neighborhood fairly often, but the wrinkle is the situational context. Here is the thing, the schedule spot and recent trends quietly lean toward a lower scoring script. Detroit has tightened up in 3 of its last 5 by allowing 2 or fewer goals, and teams that are winning and trusting their goalies often lean into a more controlled style, especially at home. Utah, while allowing 4 goals in 4 of its last 5 outings, is also at the end of a tough stretch, and tired legs can lead to simpler, safer plays, fewer creative rushes, and more dump and change shifts. That can actually drag pace down instead of turning the game into a full track meet. So even with 2 offenses hovering around 3 goals per game, there is a reasonable path to a game that plays a bit more cautious, with special teams and goaltending doing enough to keep the total in check rather than letting it spiral. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Winnipeg Jets versus St. Louis Blues. The Winnipeg Jets head back to Enterprise Center, the building where they really struggled last season in that first-round playoff series. Connor Hellebuyck had a rough time in those road games, and it felt like every mistake ended up behind him, but the write-up notes that the President's Trophy-winning Jets still managed to get through in 7 games. It was the kind of series that leaves a mark, even when you advance. This season has not been quite as clean for Winnipeg. They have not matched last year's efficiency, but a big part of that story is missing their #1 goalie for a good chunk of the schedule. Hellebuyck, described here as the defending Vezina Trophy winner, has only just come back and has 2 games under his belt, with 4 total goals allowed. His latest outing was a 3-2 overtime loss at home to the Ottawa Senators on Monday, which is not a disaster, but it is not exactly a feel-good win either. Even so, the way he has returned without looking shaky is a big psychological boost. On the other side, the St. Louis Blues were hammered 5-2 at home by the Nashville Predators on Monday, and they are sitting at 1-3-0 over their past 4 games. Jordan Binnington has really been struggling, so the coaching staff has leaned more toward Joel Hofer in a kind of 1A role as they search for something that resembles stability in net. It feels very work in progress in goal for St. Louis, and that is exactly where the Jets can lean on their edge. Hellebuyck is simply a more reliable presence, and in this write-up he is framed as having missed a month without showing any real rust upon returning. Zooming out, the Jets have been the better team this season on both sides of the puck. They get their starter back. They have been stronger offensively and defensively than the Blues, and St. Louis is dragging around the label of having the 3rd worst offense in the league this year. That is not the sort of scoring profile you want when your goaltending is not bailing you out. Recent form does not flatter either team, with the Jets at 1-3 in their last 4 and the Blues at 1-4 in their last 5, but Winnipeg still comes out looking a little more trustworthy. Home and road splits add even more weight. The Blues have been stumbling in their own rink, going 1-3 in their last 4 home games, including that loss to Nashville, with their lone home win in that stretch coming against Chicago. That is not exactly a murderer's row of home success. The Jets, by contrast, bring better overall play and steadier goaltending into a building where the home side has not been especially intimidating lately. Honestly, when you add all that up, the value in this matchup sits with the visitors. As our first pick for this matchup, the Winnipeg Jets money line is our full game side pick. Offensively, the Blues are averaging 2.53 goals per game and are converting 19.1% of their power play chances. That is just a touch under middle-of-the-pack scoring, which fits with the idea of them having a bottom-tier offense. Defensively, they are allowing 3.56 goals per game and killing 77.6% of opposing power plays, so they are giving up plenty and their penalty kill is not exactly erasing mistakes. That combination can make for some ugly nights when things snowball. The Jets bring a stronger offensive profile. They are averaging 3.03 goals per game and are scoring on 20.4% of their power play opportunities. That is solid production, especially when the top 6 is rolling and the man advantage keeps teams honest. Defensively, Winnipeg is allowing 3.06 goals per game and killing 79% of their opponents' power plays. Those numbers suggest they are not an airtight defensive juggernaut, but they are also not falling apart. It is more of a slightly above average feel on both ends. Here is the thing, though, when you combine these stats with the way the matchup is framed, you can see a path where the goal count does not fully explode. The Blues offense has been described as one of the weakest in the league, and even with those 2.53 goals per game, they often struggle to sustain pressure or finish chances. If Winnipeg's structure holds and Hellebuyck continues to look sharp, St. Louis might have trouble turning zone time into actual goals. At the same time, Jets games do not always turn into chaos on the scoreboard. With Hellebuyck back, there is a natural tendency for them to play more confident, but also more controlled, trusting their goalie and not forcing offense that is not there. So while the raw averages suggest both teams can land around 3 goals on a typical night, the specific context here leans toward a contest where defensive execution and goaltending clamp down enough to keep the total from running high. A struggling home offense, a road team with a strong goalie returning, and penalty kills that are not elite but not disastrous can all blend into a script where scoring chances are there but not converted in bunches. That is the sort of setup that fits neatly with a lower total rather than a track meet. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Nashville Predators versus Carolina Hurricanes. The Carolina Hurricanes head into Bridgestone Arena on Sunday to take on the Nashville Predators in an NHL matchup that feels a lot trickier than the odds suggest on the surface. Carolina is the better team overall, and they are playing the cleaner brand of hockey right now. They have already shown they can handle their business on the road, and when they are rolling, they look like one of the few groups that can hang with anyone in the league. That part is all true. The problem, and it is a big one if you care about value, is the number on this game. This price is pretty wild for a road favorite facing a Nashville team that has quietly stitched together some strong form. Even though we have faded the Predators plenty this season in this kind of thinking, you have to acknowledge what they are doing lately. They have won 7 of their last 10 games, and the offense has finally picked up a bit of rhythm, which was missing early in the year. That matters because a live home dog with a functional offense is not something you just hand-wave away. On top of that, Nashville has taken 5 of the last 7 meetings with Carolina, so there is a recent head-to-head track record backing the idea that this matchup is not as lopsided as the raw power ratings might make it look. Here is the thing, Carolina has been getting dragged into track meet type games and shootouts all over the place lately. They still win plenty of them, sure, but those kinds of games are often tight late, and they leave the back door wide open for an underdog to hang around on the spread. Nashville has been playing decent hockey, not perfect, but confident enough, and it is hard to ignore the fact that the Predators were just pushed around by Carolina not that long ago. That kind of loss tends to linger a bit, and it usually brings a sharper, more stubborn effort in the rematch. Put that together, and it feels much more like a one-goal type game than a blowout spot, which tilts the value toward taking the Predators with the insurance. As our first pick for this matchup, the Nashville Predators to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. The Carolina Hurricanes are averaging 3.25 goals per game and are scoring 15.2% of their power play opportunities. That is a steady offensive clip, even if the power play is not exactly terrifying on paper. Defensively, the Carolina Hurricanes are allowing 2.78 goals per game and are killing 79.8% of their opponents' power plays. Those figures suggest a team that usually tilts the ice in its favor but still gives opponents enough chances to make it interesting, especially if they slip into one of those up and down, long change nights. On the other side, the Nashville Predators are averaging 2.81 goals per game and are scoring 17.6% of their power play opportunities. That is not an elite attack, but it is good enough that, when the puck starts bouncing their way, they can put up crooked numbers, particularly at home. Defensively, the Nashville Predators are allowing 3.47 goals per game and are killing 81.7% of their opponents' power plays. So you have a team that gives up its fair share, even with a reasonably respectable penalty kill, which is usually a recipe for some chaos when facing a strong offense like Carolina's. Carolina's recent tendency to get pulled into high-event, chance-trading games matters a lot here. Those shootouts the write-up mentions, not just literal ones but the wide-open style, usually bring more rush chances, second opportunities, and scrambles around the crease. Nashville's recent uptick in offense, combined with a defense that has been leaky enough to make every mistake feel dangerous, feeds right into that kind of script. It is easy to picture both sides finding stretches of pressure and both power plays getting looks, even if they are not elite units statistically. So when you blend the Hurricanes' solid scoring average with the Predators' willingness, or maybe tendency, to play in higher scoring environments because of their defensive numbers, it points toward a game where the scoreboard should be active more often than not. It does not need to be a wild 7-goal explosion to clear a typical total. A steady drumbeat of chances on both sides, a few power play conversions, and one loose period could be enough. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. New Jersey Devils versus Vegas Golden Knights. The Golden Knights opened their 5-game road trip with that 3-0 win over the Devils, which is about as clean a start as you can ask for on the schedule. Vegas edged New Jersey 25-24 in shots, and Akira Schmid, facing his old team, picked up his second shutout of the year. The Knights grabbed the lead late in the first period, then put the game on ice with a pair of power play goals late in the third. Jacob Markstrom was in net on the other side for New Jersey, which is a tough assignment when your group is already short on confidence. New Jersey really misses some key pieces, and you can feel it most in their attack. The offense has slowed a lot since Jack Hughes went down, and when your most creative player is out, the whole thing tends to look a bit flatter. On top of that, the Devils' goaltending has been nowhere near top tier this season. Markstrom's December line in this write-up, a 3.44 goals against average and .876 save percentage over 5 starts, is rough. Jake Allen's December numbers are not any prettier, with a 3.72 goals against and .867 save percentage across 3 starts and 1 relief appearance. That is the kind of goaltending profile that makes every defensive mistake feel fatal. Vegas, by comparison, simply brings more to the table right now. The Knights have more points than the Devils this season, and while they have actually been stronger on the road than at home, they are still holding their own in their own building. They come into this matchup red hot, with a 6-1 record in their last 7 games, while New Jersey has stumbled to 2-7 over its last 9. That is a big gap in current form. Vegas has also been better on both sides of the puck, which matters a lot when you are evaluating a favorite that has to justify a spread. There is also a comfort factor here. The Knights have taken the last 3 home meetings against the Devils, so this is not an opponent that has historically walked into Vegas and pushed them around. When you combine that home trend with their recent surge and the Devils' combination of injuries and shaky goaltending, you get a fairly clear picture. Even if the line looks a little inflated at first glance, the side that is healthier, hotter, and deeper is still the Golden Knights, and that supports the idea of them not just winning but covering as favorites. As our first pick for this matchup, the Vegas Golden Knights to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. Vegas has won 6 of its last 7 outings, but the key detail for the total is what they have allowed, 2 goals or fewer in 4 of their last 5. That is a club playing with real defensive structure and goaltending that is cleaning up the messes that do slip through. The Golden Knights are 7-4 at home this season, while the Devils are 8-0 on the road, which looks pretty average, but the recent pattern matters more for the total than the raw records. New Jersey has alternated wins and losses over its last 5 games, but more importantly for this angle, it has allowed 2 goals or fewer in 2 straight. So even with all the criticism of their goaltending, there are signs of things tightening up, at least in small spurts. On the other side, Vegas games have leaned toward lower scores recently, with the Knights staying under 5.5 goals in 4 of their last 5. That is not a coincidence when you look at the way they have limited opponents to more than 2 goals just once in that stretch. The Devils' recent offensive struggles add another layer. They have had trouble scoring, and the goaltending issues mentioned earlier can sometimes push a team into a more cautious style, trying to limit chances against instead of getting into a track meet. Meanwhile, Vegas has been very good at keeping opponents to 2 or fewer, and 4 of its last 5 games have finished with fewer than 6 total goals. That combination creates a template where games feel competitive but do not necessarily explode on the scoreboard. There is also the injury angle hanging over both sides. If Timo Meier and Arseny Griciuk remain out, New Jersey's offense is going to keep grinding to create enough chances, because that is a lot of talent missing from the lineup. On the flip side, if Pavel Dorofeyev eventually sits out, that would be a real hit to the Golden Knights' offensive punch. With both teams at risk of missing key forwards, the attacking ceiling dips a bit, even if the overall effort level stays high. It makes it even likelier that this shapes up as a tighter, more controlled game rather than a wild, back-and-forth shootout. Finally, the history between these 2 in recent meetings points the same way. Each of the last 4 games between New Jersey and Vegas has finished with fewer than 5 total goals. When you pair that trend with the current defensive form of Vegas, the Devils' scoring issues, and the possibility of more important forwards being unavailable, the argument for a lower total gets pretty strong. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.